Okay, so good evening, everybody. We are on Masechta Megillah, page 4b, and if we're lucky enough, if we do it right, we're going to go over to 5a, and in fact conclude the Gemara on this Mishnah, which means we'll have completed an entire section, and we'll be ready to begin the second Mishnah. Excited about that?
Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to have to work hard to get there. Okay, in the Korenstein Das Talmud, page 213, second last paragraph. So, let's refresh ourselves a little bit. Last week, as Kiki pointed out, we did not have the class on Masechta Megillah, but we actually did Megillah. Did you follow the Megillah? Did you find some familiar verses at the end? B'chol medina medina, b'chol ir v'ir, b'chol mishpacha mishpacha, b'chol shana v'shana.
Yeah, now that you refresh me.
Bizmanehem. You're the one that reviewed, right?
Yeah. Doesn't mean it's stuck, but I reviewed it.
Okay, so in the last class, we spoke about Purim falling out on Shabbos. And what do walled cities do? What do non-walled cities do? What do villages do? And there were all different kinds of discussions about, do we pull things back to Friday? Do we pull things back to Thursday? Can a non-walled city be before a walled city? Can it be after? Okay. Wait, let's focus though on one opinion, which is that what the Gemara is going to focus on. So if you go back to 212, I thought Pesach is coming.
Apparently Sukkot is coming. But there's a relationship, right?
Well, he wants to do it now?
¿Todas las días?
And they can't do it now. Tell him at 8:30.
A las 8:30. Gracias.
Okay, so let's refresh our memory. The Gemara earlier spoke about, quoted the Mishnah, what happens if Purim falls out on Friday, right? Erev Shabbos. So what did the Mishnah rule? Who reads what and when? Remember? Who remembers anything? So the Mishnah ruled that the villagers go back to the Yom HaKnisa, the assembly day, which is Thursday, fine. Ayaras Gedolas and Mukafes Chayma, the cities, the unwalled and the walled cities, all read on Friday. Then no need to change. Meaning, unwalled cities read on the 14th, Friday. Walled cities would ordinarily read on the 15th, but they can't read on Shabbos. We're going to find that later today. So they go back to Friday, which means in this circumstance, walled and unwalled cities read on the same day. And that's obviously in the Brisa, one of the issues. Can walled and unwalled read on the same day, or do one have to be the day before, like every single year, etc.?
But it says clearly in the Mishnah.
The Mishnah, okay, whatever.
So how can a
that's
Brisa overrule a Mishnah?
That's the halacha, but there's different opinions about that. Not everyone agrees with that. As our Gemara asked last week, the Gemara said, who's our Mishnah? It could be either Rebbe or Rabbi Yossi, but not the Tanakama of two Brisas which we quoted. What was the Brisa? What was Rebbe's opinion? Let's focus on Rebbe. So the Gemara asked, I'm going back to 212, fourth paragraph. My Rebbe, what did Rebbe say? What's Rebbe's opinion? The time that there's a Brisa. If Chol is B'Erev Shabbos, if Purim falls out on Friday. So the first opinion, which is the Tanakama's opinion, holds that Kfarim and Ayaras Gedolos, both villages and cities, go to Thursday, the assembly day. And the walled cities read on Friday. And Rebbe said, I say that unwalled cities should not be pushed off from a regular day. Villages will go back to Thursday, but both unwalled and walled cities will read on Friday. There's no reason to push off the unwalled cities to the day before. Let them read on the 14th, which is the main day of Purim. You good? You want to say for it? Do we have one? I'm not sure if we have one.
Sure.
I came straight on.
Okay, you're good. How's your eyes?
It's okay. We you found it?
Yeah. Now you're gonna learn hardcore.
I give that to Kiki.
Huh? Next page, 4b.
Is this a new set?
No. Okay, so Rebbe says, let's review that. Rebbe says, if, do you know where we are, Johnny? 4b, Dalet Amud base. And we're going to be on the line of the Savar. It's the second last word of, it's the last word of the second big line. You got that? Yeah, I don't know if I have the same print as you. Dalet Amud base. Okay. So Rabbi holds that if Purim is on Friday, then the villagers go to the day before, to the Thursday, to the day of assembly, but both the unwalled and the walled cities read on the 14th, which is Friday. The Gemara asks now, is that true? The Rebbe is of the opinion that the unwalled cities, the large cities, do not get pushed back to the assembly day, but rather stay on the main day, which is the 14th on Friday. Is that true? I'm going to show you a brisa, seemingly where Rebbe's opinion contradicts himself. Tiny Belant in a brisa, Choli is b'Shabbos. It's a bit of a different case. Not falling out on Friday, but falling out on Shabbos. If Purim falls out on Shabbos, Kfarim. So what do you do now? Who should read when? Kfarim Magdim Aliyah Knisa. The villagers is an easy one. Let him go to 2 days earlier, to the 12th of Adar, to Thursday, which is the day of assembly. Vayaris Gedolos, Karim be'erev Shabbos, and the wall and the unwalled cities will go back 1 day and read on Friday. They don't have to go back to Thursday. They're not a village. They have plenty of people to help out over there, but they can't read on Shabbos, so they go back to Friday, which is the 13th. Umakafis Chayma and the walled cities will go Lemachar, will read on Sunday, the 15th, which is their day. That's the opinion of the Tanakama. Rabbi says, I say, since we're anyways pushing off the large unwalled cities from their original day, their day is 14th, which is he falls out on Shabbos. So they can't read on Shabbos, we're pushing them back. Well, the Tanakama said we're going to push them back to Friday. Rabbi says, if you're already pushing them back, push them back further to read together with the villages to read on Thursday, the day of assembly. What does that opinion of Rebbe tell us? That tells us that we do push the unwalled cities back to the day of assembly together with the villages. So the Gemara seems to raise a question that seems to be contradicting Rabbi's opinion in the brisa we quoted last week, where Rabbi argued with Tanakama. Tanakama said that the villages and the big cities go to Thursday, and only the walled cities remain on Friday. So that's what Tanakama said. Rabbi said, I disagree, and the unwalled cities should remain on the same day, on the regular day, which is the 14th. Let them read on Friday, 14th. They don't move to the day of assembly. And in this brisa, Rabbi argues Tanakama. Tanakama says we only bring the unwalled cities back to Friday. And Rabbi said, well, if you're already bringing them back, bring them back to Thursday. The Yom HaKnisa, so they can read together with the villages. That's the Gemara's question. Does anybody understand that question? Is something wrong with that question?
They're saying that in one brisa he says one thing, and the next brisa he says another thing.
Correct. That is the framework of the brisa. The question is, do we understand what the question is? Is it really a question?
Why bring it back to Thursday in one case but not in the other?
That's the Gemara's question, right? In one brisa, Rebbe says, last week's brisa, Rebbe says, don't move it, and don't move it to Thursday. Keep it on its original day, which is Friday. And in this brisa, Rebbe says, move the big unwalled cities back to Thursday together with the villages.
Which you have to move it because otherwise it would fall on Shabbos. The question is, why move it 2 days and not one? If you're moving it, why do you have to move it all the way to Thursday to read with the villagers and not just move it 1 day back to read on the 13th?
So good. So keep in mind the cases are completely different.
Yeah.
Last week's brisa is talking about Purim falling out on Friday.
On Friday.
Today's brisa we just learned is Purim falling out on Shabbos. No. So last week's brisa, the Purim fell out on Friday. Tanakama said the cities should go back to Thursday together with the villages, and Rabbi said there's no need. Let them read on Friday. That's the 14th. It's the regular day.
Right, so
They don't go back to Thursday.
in
In this week's brisa, Purim falls out on Shabbos. For sure, the world cities are not going to read on their regular day, the 14th. Why? Because it's Shabbos. So we have to push them back. We push them back to Friday. So Rabbi says, let's push them back to Thursday already to read together with the villages.
At that point, it doesn't make a difference because you're moving them anyway.
So are you questioning the Gemara's question?
No.
You should be.
I'm trying to understand the logic.
You're questioning the Gemara's question, as you should be. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a contradiction of Rabbi. But this is what the Gemara is going to answer right now, but I don't really understand how the Gemara even raised the question. The answer is so obvious. The Gemara, look at the Gemara answers. Hachi Ashda, the Gemara says, what are you talking about over here? Hasam, in this brisa we just quoted, Zmanam Shabbasi. Purim is falling out on Shabbos. The 14th is Shabbos. The regular day for the unwalled cities to read will be Shabbos. And you can't read on Shabbos, since we're anyways pushing them off. Yitchu. Keep pushing them off. Not just to Friday, but to Thursday also, because they get the added advantage of them reading together with the villages. But in the brisa from last week, the Purim is falling out on Friday, and Rebbe does not rule there to bring them back to Thursday. He argues with Tanakama and says they should read on Friday. Yeah, Zman Erev Shabbos, because Friday is the 14th. The question was a very superficial assumption. The assumption was in one brisa, Rebbe says, push off the walled cities back to Thursday together with the villages. The other brisa says, don't push it off to Thursday. But the answer is very simple. The reason why Rebbe said push off to Thursday was because anyways it was being pushed off, because it cannot read on its original day, because its original day is Shabbos. So if you're anyways pushing it off, why push off to Friday? Push off to Thursday, where they can be together with other people, the villages. But in the other brisa of last week, it's not being pushed off. Friday's Friday. You can read on Friday. You're allowed to have Purim on Friday. Friday's the 14th. It's his real day. Why would you push it off? There's no reason to push it off. It's his original day. So Rebbe does not argue with himself. He's saying, ideally, unwalled cities should always be reading on their day, on the original day, on the 14th, if they can. If it falls out on Friday, they can. If, however, a circumstance happens that you're anyways pushing off the unwalled city, why? Because Purim's falling out on Shabbos. Okay, says Rebbe. Says don't push them up just to Friday. Push off also to Thursday. They could be together with the villages. Simple resolution. Now the Gemara sort of substantiates or provides additional support. The Gemara says, like whom is the opinion that Rabbi Chelba once taught a teaching in the name of Rav Huna as follows? We're going to study his teaching, Rav Huna's teaching, and then we're going to ask who's he going like. Rav Huna is an Amora, right? Rav Huna is an Amora, a latter scholar, latter sage. And we're going to try to find him a source in the Tanaim, in the early generations. So what did he teach? He taught, Purim shecholi is b'Shabbos. If Purim falls out on Shabbos, hakol nidachin li'maknisa. You bring everybody to read. You push it back to Thursday.
So not even
who's
Friday,
everybody?
Not even Friday.
Not Friday, but Thursday. Now, who's everybody? Everybody implies everybody, walled cities, unwalled cities, and villages. So the Gemara says, you really think he means everybody? Like, there are the walled cities anyways read on the 15th, which is Sunday, which works out perfectly fine. There's no reason to push off the walled cities. So the Gemara says, you're right. We have to reframe what Rav Huna said. He didn't say everybody gets pushed off to Thursday. He said, Kol hanitchen, anybody that needs to be pushed off its regular date, you may as well push him off to a day of assembly. When Purim falls out on Shabbos, who needs to be pushed off? Because he can't read on Shabbos. Not the walled cities, because they read Sunday anyhow. Right. The walled cities and the villages.
The unwalled cities.
Sorry, the unwalled cities and the villages. Good. So Rav Huna says the villages go to Thursday. We know that already. What about the unwalled cities? Well, so Rav Huna makes a principle. Anytime you're pushing somebody off, push them off all the way back to a Yom HaKnesset, to a day of assembly. So therefore, the unwalled cities will read on Thursday together with the villages, and the walled city will read on Sunday, which is a regular day. Whose opinion is that like? Yeah, come on, Rebbe. That's based on how we clarified Rebbe's opinion from the two brises we had. Last week's brisa, today's brisa, we thought that maybe they're contradicting each other. We resolved it, and we said that unwalled cities will not get pushed off if they can read on their day, even if it's Friday. But if they're going to get pushed off, like it falls on Shabbos, let's push them off all the way back to a Yom HaKnesset, day of assembly. So now we have Rav Huna said this opinion. So the Gemara says, no, very good. Before it was just Rav Huna, and now we can find extra weight for Rav Huna's opinion because it happens to be the opinion of Rabbi also. So by the way, it's an interesting thing that just a lesson to learn out from here. Purim falls out on Shabbos. You can't read on Shabbos. You would imagine read on Friday. In other words, you want to celebrate on a day that's closest to the original day of Purim. That would be ideal. That would be ideal. That's certainly a valuable thing. But the Gemara says there's an additional value that we have to deal with, and it happens to end up being a more important value. And what is that? Having more people read together.
Isn't it also impractical to read on Friday?
Do it.
Right.
Because, you end the day, but you can't really end the day in celebration. You need to get ready for...
It's not the best day to celebrate Purim, except that it happens. It happened last year. We did it last year, right? Purim fell out on Friday. And the halach is to fall out on Friday, you read on Friday. You don't go back to Thursday. Well, yeah. But, yeah. Not always the most convenient. Nothing's ever convenient, right? If high holidays fall out on Shabbos, it's a problem. Falls out on Wednesday, it's a problem. Whenever they fall out, someone's got a complaint about it. Right? There's no tell me a good time you want the holidays to fall out on.
3-day Yom Tovs are tough. I think everybody can agree on that. 2 days is fine. It's beautiful. This is my humble.
Yep, that's true.
Coinciding with Shabbat is even better.
3 days.
That's
No,
this
2
year,
days.
but this year Pesach is Shabbos. Shabbos
Right.
Sunday.
Yeah. Now I know.
Shabbos and Sunday. Yeah. So there's no Shabbos Chol Hamoed. It's not
The
Shabbos
second
Chol
one
Hamoed.
is Friday and Saturday.
It's fine, 'cause I only take 1 day vacation.
So you got a full week of work.
No, I only have
except
to
for
take
Friday.
1 day off. I only lose 1 day of vacation.
See, everyone's got their own calculations
Yeah.
depending on their life, right?
That's right.
My kids say they wish they was during the week.
Yeah, of course, it will be flat.
Right.
So the kids are on vacation the whole week regardless.
Yeah.
The Chol Hamoed week, yes.
So,
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so with that, we conclude that discussion. Now we get into this discussion we've been waiting to have for a very long time, and it finally arrives. One thing that we've learned from the previous brisa, which said that if Purim falls out on Shabbos, you can't read on Shabbos. What should you do? Should you go back to Friday, to Thursday? What we see from there is certainly we can't read the Megillah on Shabbos. Okay, and the question is why? So the Gemara says, "To call Yamal Miyas." One thing that we can take away, according to everybody, whether you're Rebbe or whether you're Tanakama, whether you get pushed back to Friday or to Thursday, one thing is for sure: they all agree, Megillah b'Shabbos lo karino. You can't read the Megillah on Shabbos. And the question is, my taima, why? The sages made a Yom Tov. Yom Tov is Shabbos, and you're telling me I can't do a mitzvah. I can't read the Megillah on the Yom Tov. Why?
same way you can't blow the shofar.
Why not? Why? It doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure we'll find out.
You still celebrate Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, you just don't go to shofar.
It could be still celebrate Purim on Shabbos, just not
Yeah,
Megillah.
no, yeah, no, just no.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So we have two answers: one more famous answer and one less famous answer. Omar Rabba gives the more famous answer, and that is Hakol Chayavim Mikriz Megillah. Everyone is obligated to read or hear the Megillah. It's a mitzvah for everybody. Ve'ein Hakol Bekim B'Mikra Megillah, but not everybody knows how to read it. So we're concerned. It's Shabbos. It's Friday night. You're in your house, and tomorrow you have to read the Megillah. Maybe you're reading it. Maybe you're reading it for yourself. Whatever. And you're nervous. You don't know how to read some of the words or some of the notes. So the rabbis made a decree. Maybe you're going to carry the Megillah with you and take it to the rabbi to learn with him. And what's going to happen? And you're going to end up carrying 4 amos in the public domain, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. You're not allowed to carry 4 amos in the public domain. This is talking about there's no Eruv.
But wouldn't it be logical for the rabbi gives classes beforehand, and he has his speeches, and he has everything, do not carry the Megillah. So people would know. So they listen to the rabbi all the time.
Do you know that this is like on a weekly basis? We could send out emails, WhatsApps, Facebooks, Instagrams, announcing a certain time, a certain thing, and it's gone out 17 times, and I have complaints from everybody. Why do you keep it? And there's still that person that always calls last minute. What time is whatever? What time is whatever? I spent 20 hours disseminating that time in the past week.
But
there's always
Mario,
the one shlamazel.
I'm teachable. I'm teachable.
okay, all right.
What's the difference between a shlamazel, a shlomil, and a nudnik?
I don't know.
The shlamazel spills the milk, spills the soup. The shlomil gets the soup spilled on him. And the nudnik wants to know, what kind of soup was it? So there's always the shlomil. Now,
wouldn't the assumption be that someone that is planning to read the Megillah will be prepared to read the Megillah beforehand?
So
I know someone that read the Megillah this year that was cramming in an hour before the reading, reviewing it.
I can guesstimate the last name. Similar to somebody listed.
And can you guess I made the first name? It wasn't my son. He was much more prepared than me.
Oh, it wasn't your son.
Only 2 wolves read the Megillah this year.
Exactly.
He was good. He
was great.
He knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
He did an extra one for us. Private event.
Yeah, he read 7 times that day.
7 times.
Yeah, we went to different places. We read the
No,
other day.
Howard wasn't here this year? No.
Howard.
No, he's in Boston.
Oh, he moved forever and ever?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 He read there. And the Gemara says, "V'haina time of the shofar." That's the same explanation why we don't blow shofar if Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. V'haina time of the lulav, and the same reason applies when Sukkot falls out on Shabbos. You don't shake the lulav and etrog. A difference being that on Purim you don't read the Megillah on Shabbos, but you have another option: read it the day before, or Friday, or Thursday, whatever your opinion is. But on Shabbos, you don't have another option. On Sukkot or Shofar, you don't have another option to make it up.
No, but you have 8 days.
So you have, when you're shaking it tomorrow, it's for tomorrow. This day shaking, there's no making up. That's tomorrow shaking. Whereas Megillah, yesterday shaking.
Each day is its own mitzvah.
Right.
Okay. You can still do the mitzvah.
And by the way, if you're, Rosh Hashanah happens that everyone does 2 days, even in Israel, but according to the Torah, it's originally 1 day. If you did Rosh Hashanah only 1 day, the way it is in the Torah, and it falls out on Shabbos, then there's no shofar that year at all.
But do you still get the mitzvah for listening and not doing it?
Okay, that's an excellent question. We have a lot of questions to explore over here. First of all, what happens if somebody did read Megillah or did blow the shofar on Shabbos? Chazal said you're not allowed to.
So the Raisa
you did it.
didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So have you made the Raisa fulfilled the mitzvah, but made the Rabbanon violated the words of the rabbis? A, have you done that? B, is that even possible? C, that's such a twisted thing, right? Second of all, let's go back a step. How do the rabbis have the power to uproot a law of the Torah? Now, Megillah is different. Megillah, you could argue, it's not from the Torah, it's from the rabbis, it's from the Nevi'im. Okay, we'd have to figure that. But shofar, lulav, how did the rabbis just say there's a mitzvah from the Torah, and all of a sudden, but yeah, we're gonna cancel the mitzvah?
They have
Really?
the power.
The rabbis have the power to argue against God.
They were given
I know these
authority.
rabbis think they're really great, but we used to have a teacher in school. I'm not going to say his name. But we used to think he's very arrogant. So we used to say, what's the difference between Rabbi X and God?
God is humble.
So we said the difference is that God doesn't think he's Rabbi X. Look at this abuse of power. The rabbis just cancel a mitzvah. A lot of things to figure out over here. There's something else to figure out. Let's go step by step because there's a few nice commentaries of Tosfos that I'll bring down over here. So first of all, what was Rabbi's decree? What was his concern? He said that it's going to be Shabbos and you're going to carry the Megillah, or carry the shofar, or carry the lulav and esrog. And how are you going to carry it? What did he say? What's the carrying concern? You're going to carry 4 amot in a public domain. That's
So
true.
Is the carrying or the blowing?
So what?
The issue with the shofar is the
The
carrying.
blowing, right? Blowing.
Not the blowing.
It's
The
not
carrying.
Really?
The blowing
You think that, like,
is
the work you're doing work.
so the Gemara talks about it. Maybe it should be muktzah, but even if it's muktzah, can the rabbis? If Torah says blow shofar and Shabbos, can the rabbis make it muktzah? Like Torah said, it's not muktzah. Torah said blow it. So the Gemara says that blowing shofar is a skill, is a malacha. Not a malacha, it's a chach. It's not a malacha, it's a chachma. It's not a labor, it's a skill. It's like some people are the masters at Hagbah. Yeah, you could say they're working out. They're not working out, and they're not doing unnecessary exercise. They're doing Hagbah. It's a special skill. It's a skill that's allowed on Shabbos if you know what you're doing. That's not the issue. The issue is the carrying and to prepare for it. By the way, the concern could be, this rabbi did not say, but the concern could be for carrying to go to the rabbi's house to learn how to do it. Or the concern could be for carrying it to Shul.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't prepare yourself. You didn't bring it to Shul before Rosh Hashanah, before Purim. You left it in your house, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's going to be hundreds of people waiting for me to blow shofar, and I forgot to bring it yesterday. No one's going to know. Slip it in your pocket and carry it to Shul. So we're concerned you're going to carry it 4 amas in a public domain. Now that is not allowed, right? But 1 second. But shouldn't there be a better or an earlier concern? Like before you get into the public domain carrying 4 amas, there's an earlier concern. There should be a concern you're taking it from the private domain to the public domain. There's 2 prohibitions of carrying on Shabbos. One is crossing domains, private to private to private. And one is within a public domain, carrying a 4 amas. Now you have where's your Megillah? In your house? And you're going to go to the rabbi's house? So the first violation is carrying it from the private to the public domain. The second violation is carrying it 4 amot in the public domain. Why did Rambam choose to talk about the violation of carrying 4 amos in the public domain? He could have spoken about first getting the Megillah out of your house onto the street. Yeah, that's Tosfos' question. Tosfos gives an answer, and he says, interesting answer. He says, we're not concerned that a person will make a mistake and carry from the private domain to the public domain. That's a more obvious violation of Shabbos because normally there's a borderline or a fence or you have to leave your house. You know that you can't carry from your house, from your property into the street. You know that. You're not going to make a mistake about that. You're not going to get lost and forget. However, if you have it in your hand in the public domain, it's easier to slip and to walk with it. That's a reason to make a decree, but to carry from your house to the street is not a reason to make a decree because no one's going to make that mistake. That's what he answers. But you have to figure out now,
how did he get it?
How did it get there? Right? Very good.
They left their jackets outside in the street.
So Rashi explains, we're talking about even a case of a person who spent the night in the field. He came home that evening and his wife said, get out.
Instead of sleeping on the couch, sleep in the field.
You sleep in the field tonight. And he remembers his Purim. So as he's being, as he's running with him, he takes his Megillah with him. maybe at home he's the lousy guy, but in the shul he's the balker, right? So now he's sleeping he's trying to fall asleep on the street, and all of a sudden he remembers he forgot how to do a certain note. So now he's going to carry it. So we're talking about a strange case where it begins in the public domain. And that's where the decree of Rabbah was made. By the way, it shows you how more and more this decree is becoming more and more remote. We started off saying, why are we concerned about some shlomil that doesn't know how to read the Megillah, didn't prepare properly, forgot the law of Shabbos, like this Klal Yisrael loses out on a whole mitzvah because of one shlomazel, yeah? And now, according to Tosfos and Rashi, we've taken it even further, and the case is not that they're in their house, because there we know we have no reason to be concerned that they're going to carry out of the house. The case is about the guy that was thrown out of his house, and he's sleeping in the street, and this guy, because of him, all Klal Yisrael loses out on the mitzvah.
Nothing.
This is another answer. You want to hear another answer?
I hope it's better than this, than the first one.
It's a little more complicated, but it's nice.
But this is the most famous, right? The most famous.
This answer of Rabbah about the Quran is the most famous. Well, we're just going deep into Rabbah's answer, and we're trying to figure out details of why he answered this way. The reason why Rabbah did not speak about the carrying from the private to the public domain, but rather about carrying within the public domain itself, is because it's possible that you could carry from a private to a public domain and not violate Shabbos. Whereas in the public domain itself, you're always going to be violating Shabbos. How so? So in order to be violating Shabbos with the prohibition, with the labor of carrying, you have to be doing three things. Carrying includes three acts. Number one, akira, picking the item up. Number two, havara, transferring of the item, walking with it. Number three, hanacha, placing it down. If I did all three, if I picked this up with the intention of taking it outside, or with the intention, then I actually took it outside, and then I placed it down outside, I have violated carrying on Shabbos. If, however, you picked up an item, and you handed it to me, I didn't take it from you, I didn't pick it up from your hand, you handed it to me, and then I carried it, and then I placed it down, I have not biblically violated Shabbos. You did the akira, you did the picking up, I did not. I just did the second two steps, the carrying and the placing down.
And the first time also did?
No. That's the biblical law.
It's a loophole.
Midrabanan, rabbinic law, it's still not allowed. But, so it's possible as follows. It says Tosfos, could be you're in your house and you're just like tidying up a little bit, right? And you pick up this item with what intention? To put it in its place, on the shelf, in a drawer, in your room. And as often happens to us, you're carrying something and you get a little absent-minded and you got to caught up something else. You forgot that's in your hand, just like you forget your glasses are on your face and you're looking for your glasses everywhere, right? None of you wear glasses. You know about that. Where are my glasses? So there you go. Yeah, you're looking for them everywhere.
Oh,
yeah. It's like, where's my phone? I'm calling my phone to find out where my phone is. Right? So you picked it up, not with the intention of carrying it outside, with the intention of just placing it somewhere inside. In the meantime, it's in your hand. You walked out on the street and you put it down. Have you violated Shabbos biblically? No, because your original akira, original lifting up, was not with the intention of carrying it. So that is a possible case. Therefore, not every time you carry a Megillah outside of your home have you violated Shabbos. It could be you originally picked up the Megillah not for the purpose of carrying, but outside, but for the purpose of just cleaning up, tidying up your house. Whereas in the public domain, if you pick something up, why else? Where are you going exactly? There's only one place to go, in the public domain. Okay, so that's violating Shabbos. There's no way to get around it. Is that a better answer for you, Mario? Also not. Okay. So we decreed about Shofar, about Lulav and Esrog, and about Megillah. What is one very famous case, though, that the Chazal did not make a decree? And that we do this on Shabbos, even though there's equally plausible reasons to make a decree. Which act in Yom Kippur? Okay. So Yom Kippur is a good question. It's not the answer I was waiting for right now, but I think it may also. Yeah, Tosfos actually gets to it. Very good. Before we get to that, there's an even because we're not really blowing on Yom Kippur itself. We're blowing on Matzah Yom Kippur at the end of Yom Kippur, the end of Shabbat. Yeah, the end of right. So therefore, even though, by the way,
you wait for the next day to do it.
we practically blow after Shabbat ends, but you don't have to. You could blow on Shabbat, afternoon, evening, anytime.
When everybody starts to pick up.
Right. You're allowed to blow shofar on Shabbat on Yom Kippur, which is going to be your question. Why? But you're allowed to. Practically, most people identify the blowing of the shofar as the end of Yom Kippur. It's not necessarily so. Because it in the fast.
Right.
Because it is, they're going to run out and eat. Therefore, we wait till right after Yom Kippur. You could have blown earlier. Yeah, but you could have blown earlier. Bris Milah.
Oh yeah, bris milah.
Right? You're doing a bris in the shul.
But that's also not a job. That's
You're right. It's not a problem.
But he can carry the
But carrying the
instrument.
knife. How's he going to get the knife to shul? He may forget to bring it before Shabbos. They should have decreed no bris on Shabbos because of the need to. Maybe it's in shul, maybe it's someone's home.
You're a learned person.
But now-
You're a moil. A moil that's a profession.
Tosfos gives two answers. The first answer Tosfos gives is bris is more important than shofar, Megillah, and lulav and esrog. Why? Because the Gemara says about bris, there are 13 expressions of bris in the Passcode mentioned about Brit Milah. There's 13 covenants involved. The Torah gives so much weight to Brit Milah that even though the rabbis, as powerful as they are, or think they are, were able to take the liberty to cancel 3 mitzvot, they didn't have the chutzpah to cancel Brit Milah. That's answer number one. Answer number two, when it comes to shofar, anyone or everyone can blow shofar. When it comes to, especially when it comes to lulav and esrog, anyone and everyone. When it comes to Megillah, also anyone could read the Megillah. You can read it to yourself and read it to the Megillah. When it comes to bris milah, I don't think anyone or everyone is ready to pick up a knife and circumcise a child. Right? For that, we say, let's leave it to the experts. And who's the expert? Not just an expert surgeon, but an expert learned person. Well, they know about the laws of Shabbos. Here, we're not concerned about the Shlomil Menundik because no Shlomil Menundik is doing Brit Milah. So there's no reason to be concerned.
So do they nowadays bring the previous day? No, right?
Okay, so if you have an Eruv, it's different, right?
Now with the Arabs, no problem, right?
Yes, but if you don't have an Eruv, so where's the bris happening? The bris is happening in Shul, then the moil would bring the stuff before Shabbos. If the bris is happening in the child's home, then the moil would bring the stuff to the child's home before Shabbos. Sure. I remember growing up, I think one of my siblings had the bris on Shabbos in the house. I believe so. And the moil would have brought everything before. Chances are, yeah.
Why can't he bring it on Shabbos?
If there's no Eruv.
Oh, there's no.
Would you take the chance that the
The
Eruv is
Arab
down?
breaks.
The what?
That the Eruv is down?
So then either way, you want to be more careful, you're saying. Yeah?
Yeah.
A story about an expert moil. So it says when the Tzemach Tzedek had, the third Chabad Rebbe had one of his sons, he had several sons, and they were looking, I think it was for one of his sons, and there was two options of the moil, who to do the bris. So one option was an elderly chassid, a very pious, devout person, long white beard, davened for many hours, a real honest, genuine, pious person.
How old?
Still active, still doing brising. Okay, he was a shtat moil. He was a
Seasoned boy.
seasoned moil. That was one option. Another option was a younger guy who was a great moil, but a little more flashy, a little more modern, a little more worldly, a little more savvy. He didn't have the same level of piety that the other person had. So when it came to, which one did the Tzemach Tzedek choose? Chose the younger guy. So they asked him. The other male seems to be a much bigger Yiras Shamayim, a much more pious person. So he answered, when it comes to a circumcision, you got to go after the person who knows how to cut best. I love the long white beards right now, but my son needs to get cut on. I'm going to choose the guy that's got the best hands.
Hey, you don't think of practicality from a rebbe like that.
Now, at the same time, a moil has to be a Shem Shabbos, has to be a frum Jew, because they're not doing just a surgery; they're doing an act of a mitzvah.
Regarding the distance, what's the story about the Rebbe about that? Somebody came to us for advice of which doctor to do a very special surgery, and there was a Jewish doctor and a Goy. The Goy doctor was a bit more famous about this, and he says, "Go to that guy because
He's better."
Yeah.
Yeah, same idea. In general, not in general. When it came to doctors or came to medicine, the Rebbe always told people to go to a Reifa Yedid. You have to go to an expert doctor, but a doctor that's also a Yedid. The Yedid is a friend, somebody that knows you. Because in every medical assessment, help me out over here, there's the actual medical assessment, but there's also, in your interest, right? If I just very objectively assess you, or I also, doctor, what would you decide if this was your child? You want that kind of decision to be made. That's a different kind of decision sometimes. So it should be a Reifa Yedid. You have to have a doctor that is on your team. Okay. So the bottom line is just to add one final piece over here is that yes, the Gemara says yesh koyach biyad chachamim lakar mitzvah min Torah. The rabbis do have the power to uproot a mitzvah from the Torah. That's the principle. What are the applications of that principle? It's a huge machloket, a huge discussion in the Rishonim, of course, as you can imagine, because it's a pretty dangerous law. But ultimately, it seems to be as follows. When it comes to kum va'aseh, when it comes to the rabbis stepping up to tell you to actively do something in violation of the Torah, that they're not allowed to do. But when it comes to shev al taiseh, if they're telling you not to do something, to be passive, and not do that which the Torah is telling you to do, that they do have a power to do. Understand? The Torah is telling you to read Megillah, telling you to blow shofar on Shabbos. They have the power to say don't. They don't have the power to tell you to do something which would be in violation of Torah. There's an exception to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And that is when it comes to Hira'as Shah. Hira'as Shah is a temporary suspension of the law. The rabbis have the power, even when it comes to Kum Ba'aseh, to doing something against the Torah, they have the power to do a temporary suspension of the law, because when they deem it as a need to protect the law, to protect the people, right? Often the rabbinic agenda was to protect the law, just like the concept of you're allowed to violate one Shabbos in order to keep many more Shabbatot. If somebody's life-threatening situation, violate Shabbos, because they're going to save them, and then they're going to keep many more Shabbos. And so the point is to protect the Torah, protect the law. So there's the very, very, very famous example of Eliyahu Hanavi, who was physically battling, but also idealistically battling against the Philistines, the Pelishtim, and the Baal, and other idol worshippers. And it came down to a showdown. He told me, meet me at Baal Peor, meet me at the Hara Carmel, meet me at Mount Carmel. We're going to have a showdown. I'm going to put out my sacrifices. You're going to put out your sacrifices. And whichever fire comes down from heaven, God will choose whose sacrifice he accepts. And in the end, he chose Eliyahu's and not theirs. It was a big showdown, famous story. And the question about that is that by that time, you weren't allowed to offer sacrifices anymore outside of the temple. Once upon a time, you were allowed to have a private bama, a private mizbeach in your backyard, right? You could have a mizbeach, you could offer sacrifices to Hashem in your backyard, once upon a time. But once the temple in Jerusalem was built, you weren't allowed to have any more private mizbeachs, and you had to do all the offerings in the temple only. No, how could Eliyahu Hanavi offer a sacrifice on Mount Carmel far away from the temple? So it was a Hiras Shah, a temporary suspension of the law for the need of defending the Jewish people, protecting them against the idolaters, affirming the truth of Hashem, etc., etc. So he didn't say, from now on, everyone can sacrifice outside the temple. No, he said, right now, we're going to make a temporary suspension, and that is allowed. And there are many examples throughout history where that has been done. Yes, I cut you off.
No, you didn't. I'm sorry interrupting you. Is the rabbi's decree, is it mostly for just guarding Shabbat? Because everything we've talked about so far, their decrees.
So the rabbis did several things. Number one, the rabbis just made general mitzvot. Have nothing to do with protecting the law. The rabbis made a mitzvah to wash your hands, not a dime. They made a mitzvah to make brachot. They made a mitzvah to.
I'm talking about the ones on.
Okay.
on
Then they
going
made
against the
mitzvahs
Torah.
to provide a fence for Torah law. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So in Shabbat, there's a lot of those fences, but in other areas of law, there's many of those fences as well. For example, let's talk about. There's many examples. Let's talk about Ma'ariv, the evening prayer, right? The Mishnah says that essentially, even that's actually not a biblical
That's not
law.
Torah law.
Right. But it's originally you're allowed to daven Ma'ariv the whole night till dawn, but the rabbi said the cutoff time is midnight. Why? Because they didn't want you to forget, and that was a protection. No, but you're right. It's not a biblical law. Talk about kashrus. Look at kosher, chicken and cheese. Chicken and dairy. That's a major offense.
No, but that's you should not. That's written.
The meat and dairy.
Oh, the chicken.
The chicken is not fleshig.
Yeah.
That's like the rabbis way overstepped their boundaries over there, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, because there is some meat that looks a little whitish, right? That's the fear, right?
Yeah.
So that
like
I
you're
guess.
not allowed to have any-
I guess.
No, but also like beef is very dark, but some of the other loud meat,
Like venison,
Like veal.
like veal, is not. It's not.
It's much more pale.
That's the idea, right?
I guess. Yeah. I don't know the idea.
You know what I'm saying? That means has to be a reason, right?
Yeah, the concept was you'll get confused between meat and chicken, but
That you really don't. But, yeah.
okay. That's the first answer of why we don't read Megillah on Shabbos.
The last half hour.
By the way, you brought up Yom Kippur. Tesis brings up Yom Kippur. So he says, I've heard in the name of
Where are we?
I'm reading just from Tesis over here.
Oh, okay.
From Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, who says, how can we allow you to blow shofar at the end of Yom Kippur? He says there's two concerns. One concern is, like, I don't want to get confused over here. So, yeah, the concern about carrying it, yeah. So what is the answer? Look at the mitzvah. Look at the blowing the shofar of Yom Kippur. It's different than Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a biblical mitzvah to blow shofar, and you have to blow a series of blasts. First a tkiya, then a trua, then a tkiya 3 times. Right? It's a lot more of a comprehensive blowing, and it's a big mitzvah. So a person may be nervous. I'm not sure if I know how to blow it. They're going to carry the shofar to the rabbi to learn. Yom Kippur, first of all, there's no biblical mitzvah. It's a minhag, right? It's a rabbinic law. And number 2, it's just one blast.
Is it rabbinic law?
Yeah.
And even though it's a rabbinic law, they're allowed to break it?
The what?
They're allowed to do it during Shabbat?
Yes, because it's not a malach, it's a chachma. It's not a labor, it's a skill. Different thing. And it's only just one blast. So even if somebody's not very familiar with blowing shofar,
okay.
how wrong can you go with a blast?
We need to end our fast. Just do it.
Just make a
I don't
blast.
care. Just do it.
Just get any sound out.
I heard it. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay. Weiter. What's the next answer? Where are we? Rav Yosef Amar. Rav Yosef says,
That's not Rabbi.
and I'm back to the Gemara now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Rav Yosef, you got it?
no.
That's the second reason.
Second to last.
Second to last part. Oh, Rabbi Yosef said. Okay, I got it.
Rav Yosef says, Mipnei she'nein shel. By the way, this is my favorite reason. People don't know about this one much, but this is a much, if I'm allowed to say. Mipnei she'nein shel aniyim nusuris b'mikra Megillah. Because when people come together to read the Megillah, you know who shows up? All the poor people. They come in to collect tzedakah. And Megillah, because of the mitzvah of Tazavim, yeah. And the Megillah is a time to give tzedakah to poor people. Imagine you read the Megillah on Shabbos.
You can retell.
No, that's a good one.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
But
Except that it only works for Megillah. It does not
I
work
was
for Shofar
just
and
going to
Lulav.
say that. I was just going
That
only works
one-
for one.
Yeah.
That one will not work for Shofar and Lulav. Correct. Only Rabba's reason works for Shofar and Lulav as well.
But it doesn't have to work. It's still Megillah.
They're the ones who brought it up. The other ones.
Tananam Hachi, we also learned similarly in a brisa. The brisa said as follows: Afapisha Amru Kfarim Akdimin Liyim Aknisa. Even though we ruled that the villagers will read earlier on a day of gathering, Govin Bebayim, the poor people will collect on that day, Umachalkin Bebayim, and funds will be distributed on that day. Strange language. What do you mean, even though we said? The Gemara asks, Alpha Pisha Amr? What do you mean, even though we said? Adarabba, to the contrary, Mishum da Amr, because we put the villagers earlier, we allow the poor people to collect on that day, because that's where the people are, reading Megillah. Ella, so we're going to reframe, or we're going to readjust the language over here. Since we said that the villagers will go earlier to the day of assembly, the poor people will show up to that Megillah reading, even though it's earlier, and will distribute the funds that day, because the eyes of the poor people are looking to collect during the Megillah reading. Aval, here's an important law that addresses what Kiki said before. All this is a discussion about Megillah. Megillah may get pushed off earlier to Friday, to Thursday, to whatever. Aval simcha ein neheges ele bizmano simcha, which is the mitzvah of the feast, is for sure on the day of Purim itself. So if Purim falls out on Shabbos, you may read Megillah on Friday or on Thursday, but simcha, the feast, is on Shabbos.
So you don't do a Seudah that day?
You don't have to. There's no mitzvah to.
But you have to do it next day.
Now, Purim does not fall out on Shabbos anymore, by the way. Based on the way a calendar is made. It can't fall out on Shabbos anymore. But it used to be able to.
Remember when it fell on Shabbat, what did we do? Like a much earlier.
It never falls out on Shabbos anymore.
No, the
It falls
day
on Friday.
Friday.
When it falls out on Friday, so
you
you have,
earlier Seudah.
No, you have a
so you can have a soda any time of the day. But it's a unique thing that if you have your soda late in the afternoon,
you won't be having
then it goes into we did it last year. Then it goes into Shabbos. You don't daven Ma'ariv, you know soda, but you call Paris Mappa, you cover over the challah, you make kiddush in the middle of the soda, and you continue the soda. And the soda continues to whatever, and then we end up daven Ma'ariv, Kabbalah Shabbat,
Right.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was last year.
Yeah, that was interesting.
So you prolong the happiness.
Yeah, you go into Shabbos.
That's good.
I have a challenge for us. We're going to read the next 15 lines real quick. You ready? Because we promised to finish by the mission tonight. Tomorrow. Amar Rav. Rav ruled, Megillah, regarding reading the Megillah, Bizman, now if you're reading it on the correct time, on the 14th, for example, for unwalled cities, you don't need a minyan, you can read it alone. Shaloi Bizmana, but if you're reading on not its fixed time, like earlier, like 13th or 12th, or like villages, for example, Ba'asara, then you have to read it with a minyan. Ravasi argues and he says, Ben Bizmana, Ben Shaloi Bizmana, whether you're reading it on its right day or an earlier day, Ba'asara, you always need a minyan. So it's an argument between Rav and Ravasi about if you need a minyan to read a Megillah on Purim day, on the 14th. Nonetheless, the Gemara says, there was a story with Rav, that Rav was reading Megillah on Purim day, 14th. Rav was concerned about Rav Asi's ruling, and he went around looking for a minyan. Even though he had ruled, you don't need a minyan on that day. And there's two opinions, whether he just wanted to be stricter, like Rav Asi's opinion, even though he disagreed, or whether he possibly changed his mind.
How can Rob not have a minyan? That's a whole other.
We're actually happy because I didn't hear Megillah. A few people didn't hear Megillah. We actually read the Megillah and we didn't have a minyan.
Okay.
I was in 3 homes that day reading Megillahs for proud people. There was no minyan. The law is you don't need a minyan for Megillah. But what's the rationale, by the way, why Rav says if it's on the 14th, you don't need a minyan. If it's the 13th, you need a minyan. What's the rationale? A very beautiful idea. The whole point of Purim, reading the Megillah, is Pirsumei Nisa, publicizing the miracle. Okay. On the 14th, which is Purim for everybody, everyone's busy. Everyone's reading the Megillah. Whether some people go to the Shul, I'm reading it in my house, you in your house. It's like the whole town is reading Megillah everywhere. I don't need a minyan. Even without a minyan, me, myself reading, there is publicization of the ness, of the miracle, because everyone's reading Megillah. But if we're going to the 13th of the 12th, only some people are bringing it early, not everybody. There is less people reading Megillah. So there's the strength of the publicity. Did I say publicization before? Wow. The strength of the publicity of the miracle is not as strong, so they have to bring together a minyan to make sure there's going to be actual publicity of the miracle. Okay? Now the Gemara asks the challenge of Rav. Did Rav say that if it's Bisman on the 14th, you don't need a minyan? Didn't Rav Yehuda, son of Rav Shmuel, son of Rav Shelas, saying the name of Rav? Purim Shecholius b'Shabbos. If Purim falls out on Shabbos, Erev Shabbos Zmanam, then Erev Shabbos is the time, is the day of Purim. The Gemara says Erev Shabbos Zmanam. What do you mean Erev Shabbos is the time? Erev Shabbos is the 13th, not the 14th. It's not the time. But Shabbos Zmanam, Shabbos is the time. And Lav Hocham is what it means to say. Shaloi Bizmanam Gizmanam. Rav is saying that when Purim falls out on Shabbos, then Friday becomes like Shabbos. It's the different time becomes like the time, meaning. Just like on Shabbos, if you would have read on the 14th, you could have read without a minyan. So to the Friday, which is the 13th of this year, receives the same strength as Zmanom, as being the right time of Purim, because you can't read on Shabbos. And therefore, here you're going to read on the 13th without a minyan also. Right? So what's the question? That proves to us, Rod, that Rav originally said that when the Megillah is not being read at the proper time, it's being read earlier, you need a minyan. Yeah? Only on the 14th you don't need a minyan. Here, Rav is ruling that we're reading the Megillah on Friday, not Shabbat, the 13th, and he said, Shaloi Kazmanam, even though it's not the right time, it's like the right time, meaning you don't need a minyan.
Everybody's reading at that time.
Oh. So that's right. So it's not a good example. If Purim were to fall down on a Wednesday and the villagers are reading on the Monday beforehand,
That's different.
that would be Shaloi Kazmanam. Not everyone's reading this, so that you need the minyan. But if everybody's reading on Friday because you can't read on Shabbos, it becomes like Zmanam, right? Very good. Rav is not talking about the need for a minyan. What is he referring to when he's saying that Friday becomes the Zman, becomes the 13th becomes the Zman of Purim? It's to exclude the opinion of Rebbe. To Amar, we already said, Rebbe said that since we're anyways pushing off from Shabbos, which you can't read the Megillah, we're pushing off the unwalled cities. Well, don't push them off to Friday, push them off till Thursday. So Rav says this. He's arguing with this opinion of Rebbe, not talking about minyan over here. And he's saying, Kamash Malon, there Shabbos Manahu. He's telling me, Friday is the time for Megillah reading. He said, just because they're pushing off the unwalled cities, you don't have to push them off to Thursday. You can push them off to one day earlier, which is Friday, which is different to Rebbe's opinion before that said you push them up till Thursday. So that this teaching of Rav is talking about something completely different. But Rav's main teaching, which is the halacha today, is that if you're reading on the 14th, you don't need a minyan. Of course, it is much preferred, wherever possible, to read the Megillah in a manner, as we say, Beroiv Am Hadras Melech. The more people there are, the more glory it is for the king. A crowd is always much better, but you can also fulfill the mitzvah on your own, reading it to yourself, some reading it for you without a minyan, and that is okay. And with that, we're now in 5a, and we've finished the Gemara, which means if we go back to the original Mishnah now, you're all going to be experts in that Mishnah, right? You're going to understand the dissection of every single line, every single word. And next week, we begin Mishnah number 2 in chapter number 1. It only took us 16 classes to get here. I should call for everyone who's joined us on this journey.